All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Dharma Doors. I'm MC Owens, and this is the San Francisco Dharma Collective. And tonight, you guessed it, we're going to read another sutta. Tonight, uh, we're still in the Majjhima Nikāya, but we are moving on to a new section. So if you've been coming to Dharma Doors, for a while now, at least last 10 sessions, we've been talking about the Rajavagga, which are the sutta number, basically like sutta number 80 to sutta number 90. And those are the 10 little suttas all given to kings. Well, tonight, we're moving to the Brahmāṇavagga. So this is the Vagga, the little section of teachings that the Buddha is going to be giving to Brahmanyas, or Brahmins, as they're called. So, um, it's kind of it's a long sutra tonight. I think we'll be able to get all the way through it, but you never know. But I do want to say a few things about the Brahmanyas, like this kind of new group of people. I want to say something about them before we kind of dive into this. So we've seen these characters a lot in the various suttas. And what it is, actually, what I want to tell you is that we often hear about two types of religious people in India at the time of the Buddha. We hear about Brahmanyas and Shramanyas, or Shramanas and Brahmins. And those are sort of like two general class of religious people. Neither of them are necessarily Buddhist, although the Buddhist tradition uses both of those terms, Brahmin and Shramana or Shramanya. The Buddhist uses both of those terms, but I want you to know that they're not exclusively Buddhist. A Shramanya, a Shramana, they're out in the woods. They are truly that a kind of a renunciant. A Shramanya begs for food, is kind of, basically homeless or unhoused in that sense. And so that's that type of religious person. And the Buddhist practice has a lot of overlap with that, which is why often the Buddhist practitioners are called Shramanyas, because that's what they're doing. They're doing that kind of renunciatory practice. Then there's the Brahmanyas, or the Brahmins. And the first thing I kind of want to make clear is that when we talk about Brahmins, like in India, in Indian culture, we need to keep in mind that there's a certain group, there's a certain understanding that there is a God, and not just any God, but like the ultimate God, the creator God, named Brahma, or that's what we call that God, Brahma. And so Brahmins, we would call them in English, we would also call them like Brahmanites, right? They're worshippers of Brahma. Like that's what it means to be a Brahmin. Not all Shramanyas are Brahmins. So not all yogis and meditators are devoted to Brahma, but all Brahmanyas are devoted to Brahma. That's what makes you a Brahmin, is that you are in a kind of ritual, religious, spiritual relationship with this particular idea of divinity, Brahma. So that's the group of people that the Buddha is now about to start talking to in this section. And one of the things I want to mention, and actually let's dive in, but we're only going to just dip our toe in real quick and then come back. But I just want to share with you like where the sutta takes place and like what's going on a little bit. So this is sutta number 91, It's called the Brahmāyu Sutta. Brahmāyu is the name of a person, the name of a Brahmin. And this is how it goes. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Bhagavan, the Blessed One, was wandering in the country of the Videhans with a large sangha of bhikkhus, with 500 bhikkhus. Now, on that occasion, the Brahmin Brahmāyu was living at Matila. He was old, aged, burdened with years, advanced in life, and had come to the last stage. He was in his 120th year. He was a master of the three Vedas with their vocabularies, liturgy, phonology, and etymology, and their histories as a fifth. He was skilled in philology and grammar, and he was fully versed in natural philosophy and in the marks of a great man. So that last part, the Brahmanya or the Brahmin Brahmāyu, he was fully versed in the Mahaparusha Lakshana. He was fully versed in the Lakshana, the characteristics of a Mahaparusha, of a great person or a great man, a great hero. So that's sort of actually the topic of tonight's sutta, the Mahaparusha Lakshana, the characteristics or marks or signs of a great person. But I want to mention something, a little more background on the Brahmanyas. So this sutta, it takes place in Videha, so in the country of the Videhans. And it involves this particular old 120-year-old Brahmin. And what I want you to know, because we don't talk a lot about this. In fact, I don't know if I've ever spoken about it, so I wanted to mention it. You might be familiar with a body of literature known as the Upanishads. So this is just a partial translation of some of the Upanishads. So the Upanishads are a body of literature. They're mainly philosophical literature. And there are traditionally 108 Upanishads. These, it's kind of hard to explain. They're a lot like Buddhist sutras in a way, because they describe a particular teacher, particular teaching, and the reason why I'm mentioning this is that the Upanishads, at least a lot of the very early Upanishads, they're actually contemporaneous with Buddhist suttas, or at least the early suttas, like the ones that we're reading in the Majjhima Nikāya. And if you start reading Upanishads, you're going to probably start seeing some familiar characters like King Ajatashatru, King Prasanajit, which we were reading about last week. A lot of them appear in the Upanishads. And that, like, for example, often the appearance of King Ajatashatru, well, the Buddha is often talking to King Ajatashatru. And so what that points to is that a lot of the Upanishads, again, are contemporaneous with the Buddha. And actually, a lot of the Upanishads are like alternative accounts of what was going on. Because according to some of the Upanishads, King Ajatashatru was not into the Buddha. But according to the Buddhists, King Ajatashatru was very much into the Buddha. So you kind of get different angles on history. So I just wanted you to know about these because a lot of these take place in Videha, the same place as tonight's sutta, and this particular Brahmin, not that Brahmāyu, but Brahmayu's teacher often is found in the Upanishads. So the school, the kind of school of thought of a Brahmin like Brahmāyu, you could learn more about their side of things from the Upanishads. So just wanted to mention that. I don't often talk about like non-Buddhist Indian philosophical literature in that way, so I just wanted to mention it in case you've ever wondered, like, what's up with those Upanishads? So, all right. So our Brahmin, what makes a Brahmin, at least at the time of the Buddha, is a familiarity with the three Vedas. So was it the Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, and the Samana Veda? So these three collections of ancient hymns, ancient poems, ancient Indian Sanskrit poetry. And the Vedas have a lot to do with ritual, various ritual performances. All of this, by the way, it's rituals and incantations and things that maintain a harmony or a balance with Brahma. So there's a kind of natural order that needs to be maintained, at least according to the Brahmins. And so the Brahmins, by worshiping Brahma, by reciting the Vedas, by doing the rituals that are in the Vedas, they maintain a kind of harmony and cosmic order with Brahma. That's the basic idea. It's not unlike a lot of other priestly classes or castes in the world, right, that also claim that they're maintaining the cosmic order by having a relationship with the divine. So this is a common theme in world religion. And we don't need to get into it because this is a long sutta, but this description that Brahmāyu was a master of the three Vedas, a master of their vocabulary, liturgy, phonology, and etymology, and their histories and all that. That's the classic description of a Brahmin, that they are learned in the Vedas. All right. Any burning, lingering questions about the Brahmins before we move forward? Yeah, I didn't think so. But if any pop up, please let me know. All right, so the Brahmin, Brahmāyu, heard the recluse Gautama, the son of the Sakyans, went forth from the Sakyan clan and has been wandering in the country of the Videhans with a large sangha of bhikkhus, with 500 bhikkhus. Now, a good report of Master Gautama has been spread around to this effect. The Blessed One, the Bhagavan, is accomplished, fully enlightened, perfect in true knowledge and conduct, sublime one, knower of worlds, incomparable leader of persons to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, enlightened Blessed One. He declares this world with its gods, its maras, and its brahmas, this generation with its shramanyas and brahmanyas, with its recluses and brahmins, with its princes and its people, which he has himself realized with direct knowledge. He teaches the Dharma. That's good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end, with the right meaning and right phrasing. And he reveals a holy life that is utterly perfect and pure. Now, it's good to see such arhats. Now, at that time, the Brahmin, Brahmāyu, had a young Brahmin student named Uttara, who was a master of the three Vedas with their vocabularies, liturgy, so on and so forth. He was fully versed in natural philosophy and in the Mahaparusha Lakshana, also well versed in the characteristics of a true man. And he told his student, Uttara, "My dear Uttara, the recluse Gautama, the son of the Sakyans, who went forth from a Sakyan clan, has been wandering in the country of Videhans with a large sangha of bhikkhus, with 500 bhikkhus. It's good to see such arahats. Come, my dear Uttara, go to the recluse Gautama and find out whether this report that's been spread about him is true or not. And find out whether Master Gautama is one such as this or not. Thus, we shall know about Master Gautama through you." That's an auspicious line right there. Just pay attention to that one. Uttara responds, "But how shall I find out, sir, whether the report spread about Master Gautama is true or not, and whether Master Gautama is one such as this or not?" "Ah, my dear Uttara, the 32 characteristics, the 32 lakshana, the 32 marks of a great man have been handed down in our hymns, and the Mahaparusha and the great man who is endowed with them, well, they only have one of two possible destinies, no other. If such a person lives the home life, they become a wheel-turning king, a righteous king who rules by the Dharma, is a master of the four directions, all victorious, who has stabilized his country and possesses the 7 treasures. He has these 7 treasures: the wheel treasure, the elephant treasure, the horse treasure, the jewel treasure, the woman treasure, the steward treasure, and the counselor treasure as the 7th. His children, who exceed 1,000, are brave and heroic and crush the armies of others. Over this earth, bounded by the ocean, he rules without a rod, without a weapon, but by means of the Dharma." That's one possible destiny for a Mahaparusha. But if such a person goes forth from the home life into homelessness, he becomes an accomplished one, a fully enlightened one who draws aside the veil of the world. But I, my dear Uttara, I'm the giver of hymns. You are the receiver of them. "Yes, sir," Uttara replied. And he rose from his seat, and after paying homage to the Brahmin Brahmāyu, keeping him on his right, he left for the country of the Videhans, where the Blessed One was wandering. Traveling by stages, he came to the Blessed One and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he sat down at one side and looked for the 32 characteristics of a great man on the Blessed One's body. He saw more or less the 32 marks of a great man on the Blessed One's body, except for 2. He was doubtful and uncertain about 2 of the characteristic marks, and he could not decide and make up his mind about them. What 2? About the male organ being enclosed in a sheath, and about the largeness of his tongue. All right, so hold on. So I want to kind of back up really quickly. first thing we want to make clear, and this is actually really important because if you've studied Buddhism, if you've studied Dharma, especially if you've studied sutras, the 32 the 32 characteristics, the 32 marks, they pop up a lot. It's a big part of the Buddhist tradition. So the first thing that I want to kind of use this sutra as an opportunity to clarify, I want to make a point about that one line where Brahmāyu says to his student Uttara, the 32 marks of a great man have been handed down in our hymns. So a lot of people think the 32 characteristics are like a Buddhist thing. They're not a Buddhist thing. In fact, they're a very, very old part of, call it Brahmanism, call it Hinduism. I wouldn't encourage you to do that, but you could. But these 32, the idea of the 32 characteristics, it goes way back before the Buddha. And these 32 characteristics, they were kind of almost a science of spirituality in terms of like figuring out what makes kind of an enlightened person an enlightened person. And so we want to kind of recognize, oh, these are a pre-Buddhist idea, and many people of various kind of positions, like you could be a king, you could be a yogi, you could be a lot of things and have these 32 characteristics. So Brahmāyu is sending Uttara to go check out the Buddha to see if he has these 32 characteristics. All right. In addition to that, well, I don't want to go too far down this road. And by the way, if you're curious, like, well, what are these 32 characteristics? The sutra is going to list them in a moment, so I'm not going to do it now. We just sort of want to kind of, well, again, I think because it's going to explain it, I'm not going to get too into it. But we just kind of need to, I need to tell you this though. This is the thing about, because it's about to get weird, and I don't want to like leave you like all alone in the weirdness in that way. So these 32 lakshana, and that word is really important in Buddhist like philosophy, a lakshana, a characteristic. We need to keep in mind that a characteristic is like a quality, if you will, but it's like qualities or characteristics are, it's how you differentiate anything from anything else. It's like the reason why you think that's might be a little bird is because it has the characteristics of a bird. Like it has the signs of a bird, it has the marks of a bird. Everything can be understood by its lakshana, by its characteristics. Now, these lakshana, though, the 32 characteristics, these are tricky, though. They are attributes. They are physical, kind of, at least they are described as physical. But what I kind of want you to know going into this is that, I'll do the very, very first of the 32 marks. The first of the 32 marks is described as, it's usually described as either the Buddha, a Mahapurusha, sorry. It's either described as that a Mahapurusha has flat feet, or I think in this one, they translate it as the Mahapurusha sets his foot down squarely. So puts his foot down squarely, or has a flat foot. There's other ways of translating this, but what I want you to know is that all 32 of these, Although they are described as a physical characteristic, they are all interpreted as a like a as a like a for lack of a better term, a kind of a spiritual quality. So to have flat feet, or again, to set your foot down squarely, in English, in English we have the expression to stand on your own 2 feet. But if you stand on your own 2 feet, that's a euphemism. That's a way of talking about that you're independent. You don't depend on anybody. You don't rely on anybody. You stand on your own 2 feet. So notice what I just did there, where it sounds like I'm describing a physical attribute, that a person who literally has both feet on the ground. But euphemistically, what we mean is that they are independent, they are stable, they're solid, they don't need anybody else, they stand on their own 2 feet. Well, the 32 characteristics are all like that. They sound like they're talking about something physical, but it's actually kind of a poetic euphemism for something else. I'm belaboring this point because we're about to talk about the Buddha's male sexual organ that's enclosed in a sheath. And I want us to, or I would like to share with you how I understand that. So that's where we're at. Again, the sutra is about explaining these 32 characteristics, so I'm not going to go any further. But that's where we're at. Okay. So Uttara, he gets there, he sees the Buddha, he says, oh yeah, he's got more or less all 32 marks, but he just doesn't have those two, which is the male organ being enclosed in a sheath and a large tongue. But then it occurred to the Bhagavan, to the Blessed One, to the Buddha. Get a load of this guy, right? He says, this Brahmin student Uttara more or less sees the 32 marks of a great man on me, all except two. He's doubtful and uncertain about the two marks, about two of the marks, and he can't decide and make up his mind about them, about the male organ being enclosed in a sheath and about the largeness of the tongue. The Blessed One then worked such a feat of supernormal power that the Brahmin student Uttara saw that the Blessed One's male organ was enclosed in a sheath. Next, the Blessed One extruded his tongue and then repeatedly touched both of his ear holes and both of his nostrils, and then covered his entire forehead with his tongue. Then the Brahmin student Uttara thought, the recluse Gautama is, in fact, endowed with the 32 marks of a great man. Suppose I were to follow the recluse Gautama and observe his behavior. Then Uttara followed the Blessed One for 7 months, like a shadow, never leaving him. At the end of the 7 months, in the country of the Videhans, he set out to journey to Mithila, where the Brahmin Brahmāyu was. When he arrived, he paid homage to him and sat down at one side. Thereupon the Brahmin Brahmāyu asked him, well, my dear Uttara, is the report that has been spread about Master Gautama true or not? And is Master Gautama one such as this or not? Uttara replied, the report that has been spread about Master Gautama is true, sir, and it is not otherwise. And Master Gautama is one such as this, not otherwise. He possesses the 32 characteristics of a great man. Master Gautama indeed sets his foot down squarely, and this is a Mahapurusha Lakshana. This is a mark of a great man in Master Gautama. On the bottoms or the soles of his feet, there are wheels with 1,000 spokes and ribs and hubs, all complete. This is a Mahapurusha Lakshana that the Master Gautama has. He has projecting heels. He has long fingers and toes. He has hands and feet that are soft and tender. He has webbed or netted hands and feet. His feet are arched. He has legs like an antelope's. When he stands without stooping, the palms of both of his hands touch and rub his knees. His male organ is enclosed in a sheath. He is the color of gold. His skin has a golden sheen. He is fine-skinned, and because of the fineness of his skin, dust and dirt do not stick to his body. His body hairs grow singly, each body hair growing alone in a single hair pore. The tips of his body hairs turn upward. The upturned body hairs are blue-black, the color of collyrium, curled and turned to the right. He has the straight limbs of a Brahma. He has the 7 convexities. He has the torso of a lion. The furrow between his shoulders is full or filled in. He has the spread of a banyan tree. The span of his arms equals the height of his body, and the height of his body equals the span of his arms. His neck and shoulders are even. His taste is supremely acute. His jaw is like a lion. He has 40 teeth. The teeth are all even, extremely white, they say. His teeth are without gaps. His teeth are quite white. He has a large tongue. He has a divine voice, like the call of a Kalavinka bird. His eyes are deep blue, like lotus flowers, they say. He has eyelashes long like an ox. His hair growing in the space between his eyebrows, which is white, with the sheen of soft cotton. And his head is shaped like an ushnisha, like a turban. And this is a Mahapurusha Lakshana, a great mark that Master Gautama possesses. Master Gautama is indeed endowed with these 32 characteristics of a great man. All right, and I want to keep reading the rest, but let's talk quickly about the 32 characteristics. In particular, I want to talk about the large tongue and the sheathed male sexual organ. And we can discuss any of those other ones if you would like. So again, I want to make it clear, this is a pre-Buddhist thing. All of the language of this is pre-Buddhist. All of the ideas of this are pre-Buddhist. I really want everybody to know that in the Buddhist tradition, they're not like super, like, I want to put it like, it's that they're not really into the idea of a Mahapurusha. Like, that's a very Brahmanic, like, again, non-Buddhist idea, the idea of a Mahapurusha. But what the Buddhists are doing when they talk about this is they're saying, oh yeah, the Buddha, of course he's a Mahapurusha. Like, of course he has the 32 characteristics. He's enlightened. He's the Buddha. And so when we see this, I just want to make it clear that this is not about like celebrating the great man in that kind of Brahmanic way. It's just putting the Buddha into that category and saying, oh, yeah, he fits that category. Now, when it comes to these two particular ones, the male sexual organ sheathed and the large tongue, there's a way in which we could just talk about this all night. We really, really could. These two are so interesting. And I really want to share this with you because it's just like, it would be a shame if I didn't share this with you. So, what seems to be going on, first of all, let me be very, very clear. My understanding, and it's not just my understanding, I get this from other people, but it's the people that I agree with. The particular characteristic of having a sheathed male sexual organ, as I understand it, what that means is it points to the status of being an arahat. And if you didn't know, in the early Buddhist tradition, an arahat, what makes somebody an arahat is that they no longer get aroused. They no longer, for a male practitioner, they no longer get an erection. They have totally abandoned the sexual drive in that way. And so to have a male organ that is sheathed, they're talking about like a sword that's in its scabbard. I don't need the sword anymore. It's sheathed. So that is my understanding, even though there are people who talk about, oh no, the Buddha's got a wild male sexual organ that he can retract into his body. I've heard these things. There's people that take the 32 characteristics literally, and there's people like me that take them figuratively. And again, I have a lot of support for understanding these things figuratively. And I just want you to know that that seems to be the figurative interpretation of what it means to have a sheathed male sexual organ. Now, regarding the large tongue, I want to talk about that in a second, like what it means, especially this wild idea of the Buddha touching his ears with his tongue and then his nose and then putting it covers his whole face. We'll talk about that in a second, but what I really want you to notice that's going on here, it's very subtle. It has to do with the specific language of when it says that the Buddha performed this kind of miracle or this supernatural power, and he revealed to Uttara that indeed his male sexual organ is sheathed. And then it says that the Buddha extruded his tongue. And what I want you to know or notice is going on here, it's kind of funny in a very interesting way. I want you to notice that down below, the Buddha is retracting this male sexual organ, but then he's sticking out his tongue. And so there's a really funny thing of the sexuality is being brought in and the kind of dharma or the wisdom is being brought out. And so there's a really kind of subtle sexual thing going on here with the tongue. Like I would even almost say kind of erotic in that way, but almost a kind of like I don't know. I just want you to notice that there's some mirroring or parallel thing going on there by the male sexual organ going in and the tongue going out, and then this particularly kind of weird erotic touching of the ears and the nose and all of that. Now, normally, what the interpretation of that use of the tongue, having a large tongue, the normal interpretation, again, not the literal one, because the literal one says, no, he just has a large tongue. So big he can actually lick his own earlobes. For me, that's like not interesting at all. Like that's sort of like okay, so he has a large tongue. But if you understand these things kind of euphemistically, to have a small tongue, that might be a good way to think about this. To have a small tongue, my understanding of that would be to have a very small vocabulary, definitely only speaking one language, you're definitely not multilingual, and even your limited vocabulary, you don't really use that much. That's what I would kind of call a small tongue. A large tongue, big vocabulary, multiple languages, can put it any which way you need. That is how I have heard this particular characteristic described. What does it mean that the Buddha has a large tongue? It's speaking about his ability to speak in that way. We could go through all 32. I'm not going to, but I want you to know that you can go through all 32 and you can understand them in this kind of euphemistic way that I'm talking about. So, okay, did we, Noe, please.
Does the old man have the similar characteristics because he's described as a great man?
Brahmāyu?
Yes.
No.
Oh.
I do not think we are to understand that he has the 32 characteristics. And we know that because of what's going to happen in the story. Yeah. Okay, so now that we kind of got that out of the way, and I navigated talking about the Buddha's sexual organ, we're going to go on. There's a beautiful sutra. I really would like to want to read this next part kind of uninterrupted. It's so beautiful. So I just want to remind you, Uttara, he spent 7 months trailing the Buddha like a shadow, right? Watching his every move. And now he's come back to his teacher, Brahmāyu, and he's told him, oh yeah, the reports are true. He's got the 32 characteristics, right? So it is indeed true that Master Gotama is endowed with the 32 characteristics. Furthermore, when he walks, he steps out with his right foot first. He does not extend his foot too far or put it down too near. He walks neither too quickly nor too slowly. He walks without his knees knocking together. He walks without his ankles knocking together. He walks without raising or lowering his thighs, or bringing them together or keeping them apart. When he walks, only the lower part of his body oscillates, and he does not walk with bodily effort. When he turns to look, he does so with his whole body. He does not look straight up. He does not look straight down. He does not walk looking about. He looks a plow's length in front of him. Beyond that, he has unhindered knowledge and vision. When he goes indoors, he does not raise or lower his body, or bend it forward or backward. He turns round neither too far from the seat nor too near to it. He does not lean on the seat with his hand. He does not throw his body onto the mat or onto the seat. When seated indoors, he doesn't fidget with his hands. He doesn't fidget with his feet. He does not sit with his knees crossed. He does not sit with his ankles crossed. He does not sit with his hand holding his chin. When seated indoors, he's not afraid. He does not shiver. He does not tremble. He's not nervous. Being unafraid, not shivering or trembling or nervous, his hair does not stand up on end, and he is intent on seclusion. When he receives water, or when he receives the water for the bowl, he does not raise or lower the bowl, or tip it forwards or tip it backwards. He receives neither too little nor too much water for the bowl. He washes the bowl without making a splashing noise. He washes the bowl without turning it around. He does not put the bowl on the floor to wash his hands. And when his hands are washed, the bowl is washed. And when the bowl is washed, his hands are washed. He pours the water for the bowl neither too far nor too near, and he does not pour it all about. When he receives rice, he does not raise or lower the bowl or tip it forwards or backwards. He receives neither too little rice nor too much. He adds sauces in the right proportion. He does not exceed the right amount of sauce in the mouthful. He turns the mouthful over 2 or 3 times in his mouth and then swallows it. And no rice kernel enters his body unchewed, and no rice kernel remains in his mouth. Then he takes another mouthful. He takes his food, experiencing the taste, though not experiencing greed for the taste. The food he takes has 8 factors or 8 qualities. It is not for amusement, nor for intoxication, nor for the sake of physical beauty and attractiveness, but only for the endurance and continuance of the holy life, for the endurance and continuance of his body, for the ending of discomfort, and for assisting in the holy life. And he considers, thus I shall terminate old Vedana, old feelings, without arising new feelings, and I shall be healthy and blameless, and shall live in comfort. When he has eaten and receives water for the bowl, he does not raise or lower the bowl or tip it forwards or backwards. He receives neither too little nor too much water for the bowl. He washes the bowl without making a splashing noise. He washes the bowl without turning it around. He does not put the bowl on the floor to wash his hands. When his hands are washed, the bowl is washed. And when the bowl is washed, his hands are washed. He pours the water for the bowl neither too far away nor too near, and he does not pour it all about. When he has eaten, he puts the bowl on the floor, neither too far nor too near, and he's neither careless with the bowl nor over solicitous about it. When he has eaten, he sits in silence for a while, but he does not let the time for the blessing go by. When he has eaten and gives the blessing, he does not do so criticizing the meal or expecting another meal. He instructs, urges, rouses, and gladdens the audience with talk purely on the Dharma. When he's done so, he rises from his seat and departs. He walks neither too fast nor too slow, and he does not go as one who wants to get away. His robe is worn neither too high nor too low, nor too tight against his body, nor too loose against his body, nor does the wind blow his robe away from his body. Dust and dirt do not soil his body. When he's gone to the monastery, he sits down on a seat made ready. Having sat down, he washes his feet, though he does not concern himself with grooming his feet. Having washed his feet, he sits himself cross-legged, sets his body erect, and establishes mindfulness in front of him. He does not occupy his mind with self-affliction, or the affliction of others, or the affliction of both self and others. He sits with his mind set on his own welfare, on the welfare of others, and on the welfare of both self and others, even on the welfare of the whole world. When he has gone to the monastery, he teaches the Dharma to an audience. He neither flatters nor berates that audience. He instructs, urges, rouses, and encourages it with talk purely on the Dharma. The speech that issues from his mouth has 8 qualities. It is distinct, intelligible, melodious, audible, ringing, euphonious, deep and sonorous. But while his voice is intelligible as far as the audience extends, his speech does not issue out beyond the audience. When the people have been instructed, urged, roused, and gladdened by him, they rise from their seats and depart, looking only at him and concerned with nothing else. We have seen, this is Uttara speaking, we have seen Master Gautama walking, sir. We've seen him standing. We have seen him entering indoors. We have seen him indoors, seated in silence. We've seen him eating indoors. We've seen him seated in silence after eating. We've seen him giving the blessing after eating. We've seen him going to the monastery. We've seen him in the monastery, seated in silence. We have seen him in the monastery, teaching the Dharma to an audience. Such is the Master Gautama. Such he is, and much more than that. So that's Uttara's report on what the Buddha's like. That's a great description of the Buddha, by the way. There's definitely kind of, I feel like the Vajra Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, has echoes of this in that very beginning little chapter where the chapter 1 of the Vajra Sutra just talks about the Buddha going to beg for food, coming back, washing his feet, putting his bowl away, sitting in meditation. It's basically chapter 1 of the Vajra Sutra is what I just read, but the mini version. So beautiful description of what the Buddha's like. I especially wanted to focus before we kind of move to the next part of the sutra. I love personally, and I want to talk about it. I want to talk about the line where it says that when it's talking about how the Buddha's eating, and it says that he takes his food, experiencing the taste, though not experiencing greed for the taste. You know, as a Dharma teacher, I get so many questions about this, about like, you know, these questions about desire and wanting and these things. And it's like, oh, so am I not supposed to like enjoy anything? Am I not supposed to like experience anything? Like, what's up with that? It's like, no. It's not about not having experience. That's what, for me, this idea that, no, the Buddha experiences the taste of the food. But what makes him a Buddha is that he doesn't have greed for the taste. And the greed for the taste is this, you know, wanting the more of it. Or if it happened to be kind of a not a pleasant flavor, that kind of angry distaste, that kind of bitterness for the flavor itself, versus just experiencing the actual flavor for whatever it is in that way. So I think there's actually a tremendous amount of wisdom in that one, like that can be extrapolated well beyond just eating food. And then I just wanted to comment really quickly on the last part of that paragraph where it says that this is the way the Buddha thinks about all of this. I shall terminate old Vedana without arousing new Vedana, and I shall be healthy and blameless and shall live in comfort. So a Vedana, what they're translating as a feeling, I want to remind everybody that, you know, a Vedana is about, it's not about having a feeling or a sensation. Vedana is specifically about the way that you react to sensations. In other words, do you want more of it or less of it? Is it a pleasant Vedana or is it an unpleasant Vedana? So remember, Vedana sensations are about the quality of the sensation and whether you find it pleasing or not. This is very important because what you find pleasing, I might not find pleasing. And that's why Vedana is one of the five aggregates. It's one of the things that makes you is your reactions to things, which are not necessarily my reactions to things. So Vedana is about the pleasurable, unpleasurable, also could be neutral. Vedana could be neutral. But here they're talking, so the Buddha says, I shall terminate old Vedana without arousing new Vedana. And my understanding of that is about these sort of, well, I don't want to get too into it, but it's about kind of conditioned responses to things in that way, where, it's sort of like if I gave you a bite of something and you were like, oh, I don't like that. And then you've developed this sort of Vedana, this sort of opinion that that's nasty. And so there's a way in which now, if I started to hand you another one, you'd be like, oh, no, that's nasty. But wait, you haven't even tried this one. Nah, but I tried one that looked like it. So that's like having this sort of predetermined, locked in Vedana. And I understand this as the Buddha saying that the mentality is I shall terminate these old knee-jerk habitual responses to things and not create new knee-jerk habitual responses to things. So, and then another one that I love about this that I think is also, we could extrapolate this well beyond the actual case here. I love this line that the Buddha is neither careless with his bowl nor over solicitous about it. Excellent middle path lesson there, that we are not careless with our stuff or mindless with our things, but we are not over caring, over solicitous in that sense. A kind of, you could, over solicitousness, we modern pathologizers would call it, right? Obsessive compulsive disorder, kind of obsessing about things, right? So for all the pathologizers out there, this is the avoiding those two extreme views of being totally careless or being too careful in that way. And then the last one that I love that I think is really interesting that I wanted to comment on. Well, first of all, actually, that what makes a Buddha is that when the Buddha meditates, he's definitely not meditating with a mind based on self-affliction or afflicting others or both. And then the Buddha sits with a mind set on his own welfare, welfare of others, welfare of both self and others, even on the welfare of the whole world. By the way, that right there is the Bodhisattva path. I want you to notice that here they're saying, wow, the Buddha is so amazing because he's meditating even on the welfare of the whole world. Wow. Meaning, yeah, that's what the Buddha's doing. All the, the bhikkhus, the shravakas, they're meditating on their own well-being, their own welfare, welfare of others, welfare of self and others. But what makes a Buddha is this concern for the whole world. And so to be on the Bodhisattva path is to be moving towards that concern for the welfare of the whole world. And then the last thing that I really liked was the one about when the Buddha's giving a Dharma talk, his voice is clearly intelligible to the audience, but it can't even be heard outside the audience. That, by the way, is a little aspect of what is called especially in the early Buddhist tradition, this is what is known as a Bhutta Kshetra. So a Kshetra is a field, like a soccer field, just like a field. But a Buddha Kshetra is a Buddha field. And what a Buddha Kshetra is it's about this sort of, they describe it as a sphere of influence that a Buddha has. And this is an example of that sphere of influence, that if you're in the Buddha's sphere of influence, you can hear the Dharma crystal clear. But if you're outside that sphere of influence, you can't even hear it. It's similar with the light of the Buddha's body. It extends to that sphere or that kshetra. And so that little idea of the Buddha's sphere of influence, the Buddha kshetra, that's what turns into the idea of a Buddha land in the Mahayana tradition. A Buddha kshetra becomes a pure land or a Buddha land. So this is just a little early example of a Buddha kshetra found in a Pali Sutta. All right. We got a ways to go, and we're going to try to get there. Everybody doing okay? I have the utmost confidence in us that we can do it. So, all right. So, when all of this was said, the Brahmin Brahmāyu, and remember, they're in Mithila, they're in a whole other city. When this was said, the Brahmin Brahmāyu rose from his seat, and after arranging his upper robe on his shoulder, he extended his hands in reverential salutation in the direction towards the Buddha, towards the Blessed One, and uttered this exclamation 3 times. Honor to the Blessed One, Namo Bhagavan, accomplished and fully enlightened. Honor to the Blessed One, accomplished and fully enlightened. Honor to the Blessed One, accomplished and fully enlightened. Perhaps sometime or another, we might meet Master Gotama. Perhaps we might have some conversation with him. So remember, he's just saying, he's praying to the Buddha from afar after just having heard from his student what the Buddha's like. But then, in the course of his wandering, the Blessed One eventually arrived at Mithila. There, the Blessed One lived at Makadeva's mango grove. The Brahmin householders of Mithila, they heard. The recluse Gotama, the son of the Sakyans, who went forth from the Sakyan clan, has been wandering in the country of the Videhans with a large sangha of bhikkhus, 500. And he's now come to Mithila, and he's living in Makadeva's mango grove. Now, a good report of Master Gotama has been spread about to this effect, that he's an arhat, perfectly enlightened one. Now, it's good to go see such arhats. Then the Brahmin householders of Mithila went to the Blessed One. Some paid homage to the Blessed One and sat down at one side. Some exchanged greetings with him, and when this courteous and amiable talk was finished, they sat down to one side. Some extended their hands in reverential salutation towards him, and then sat down at one side. Some pronounced their name and clan in the Blessed One's presence, and then sat down at one side. And some just kept silent and sat down at one side. The Brahmin Brahmāyu heard, the recluse Gotama, the son of the Sakyans, has gone forth from the Sakyan clan, and so on and so forth, and he's hanging out at the mango grove in Mithila. Then the Brahmin Brahmāyu went to Makadeva's mango grove with a number of Brahmin students. When he came to the mango grove, he thought, you know, it's not proper that I should just go rush up to the recluse Gotama without first being announced. So then he addressed a certain Brahmin student of his and said, come, Brahmin student, go to the recluse Gotama and ask in my name whether the recluse Gotama is free from illness and affliction, is healthy and strong and abiding in comfort, saying, Master Gotama. The Brahmin Brahmāyu asks whether Master Gotama is free from illness and abiding in comfort. And tell him this. Say, the Brahmin Brahmāyu, Master Gotama, is old, aged, burdened with years, advanced in life, has come to the last stage. He's in his 120th year. He is a master of the 3 Vedas, skilled in everything up to the marks of a great man. Of all the Brahmin householders who live in Matila, the Brahmin Brahmāyu is pronounced the foremost of them in wealth, in knowledge of the hymns, and in age and fame. He wants to see you, Master Gotama. Yes, sir, the Brahmin student replied, and he went to the Blessed One and exchanged greetings with him. And when this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he stood to one side and delivered the message that he had said. And the Blessed One responded, "Student, let the Brahmin Brahmāyu come at his own convenience." Then the Brahmin student went to the Brahmin Brahmāyu and said, "Permission has been granted by the recluse Gotama. You may come, sir, at your own convenience." So the Brahmin Brahmāyu went to the Blessed One. The assembly saw him coming, and they at once made way for him as for one who was well known and famous. Then the Brahmin Brahmāyu said to the assembly, "Enough, sirs. Let each sit down on his own seat. I shall sit here, next to the recluse Gotama." Then he went to the Blessed One and exchanged greetings with him, and when this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he sat down to one side and looked for the 32 characteristics on the Blessed One's body. He saw more or less the 32 marks of a great man on the Blessed One's body, except for two. He was doubtful about two of the marks, and he could not decide and make up his mind about them, about the male organ being enclosed in a sheath, and about the largeness of the tongue. Then the Brahmin Brahmāyu addressed the Buddha, the Blessed One, in verse, saying, "The 32 marks I learned, which are the signs of a great man. I still do not see two of these upon your body, Gotama. Is what should be concealed by a cloth, hidden in a sheath, greatest of men? Though called a word of feminine gender, because the tongue is feminine in Sanskrit, it is a jiva. Though called a word with a feminine gender, perhaps your tongue is a manly one. Perhaps your tongue is large as well, according to what we have been taught. Please, put it out a little bit, and so, O seer, cure our doubt, for welfare in this very life and happiness in lives to come. And now we crave for leave to ask something that we aspire to know." And you might have caught it in that little poem, but that's where I got my little erotic undertones from. So there was some clear, like, wink winks going on there. But then after Brahmāyu recited his poem, it occurred to the Blessed One, this Brahmāyu sees more or less the 32 marks of a great man on me, except for two. He's doubtful and uncertain about two of the marks, and he can't decide and make up his mind about them, about the male organ in its sheath and about the largeness of the tongue. Then the Blessed One did the same thing, where he worked such a feat of supernormal power that the Brahmin Brahmāyu saw that the Blessed One's male organ was enclosed in a sheath. Next, the Blessed One extruded his tongue, and he repeatedly touched both of his ear holes and both of his nostrils, and he covered the whole of his forehead with his tongue. Then the Blessed One spoke these stanzas in reply to the Brahmin Brahmāyu. The 32 marks that you have learned, which are the signs of a great man, all on my body can be found. So Brahmin, doubt no more about that. What must be known, I've directly known. What must be developed, I've developed. What must be abandoned, I've abandoned. Therefore, Brahmin, I am a Buddha, an awakened one. for welfare in this very life and happiness in lives to come. Since leave is given you, please ask whatever you aspire to know. Then the Brahmin Brahmāyu thought, permission has been granted me by the recluse Gautama. What should I ask him about? The good in this life or good in lives to come? Then he thought, I'm already skilled in the good of this life, and others too ask me about the good in this life. Why shouldn't I ask him about good in lives to come? Then he addressed the Blessed One in verse saying, how does one become a Brahmin? And how does one attain great knowledge? How does one attain the triple knowledge? And how is one called a holy scholar? How does one become an arahat? And how does one attain completeness? How is one a silent sage? And how is one called a Buddha? Then the Blessed One spoke these stanzas in reply. Who knows about their former lives, sees heaven and states of deprivation or hell, and has arrived at birth's destruction? A sage who knows by direct knowledge, who knows his mind is purified, entirely freed from every lust, who has abandoned birth and death, who is complete in the holy life, who has transcended everything. One such as this is called a Buddha. When this was said, the Brahmin Brahmāyu rose from his seat, and after arranging his upper robe on his shoulder, he prostrated himself with his head at the Buddha's feet, and he covered the Blessed One's feet with kisses and caressed them with his hands, pronouncing his name. I am the Brahmin Brahmāyu, Master Gautama. I am the Brahmin Brahmāyu, Master Gautama. Those in the assembly wondered and marveled, and they said, it is wonderful, sirs. It is marvelous. What great power and great might the recluse Gautama has, for the well-known and famous Brahmin Brahmāyu to make such a display of humility. Then the Blessed One said to the Brahmin Brahmāyu, enough, Brahmin. Arise. Sit down in your own seat, since your mind has confidence in me. The Brahmin Brahmāyu then rose and sat down on his own seat. And then the Blessed One gave him progressive instruction. That is, he gave him a talk about generosity, dana, giving. He gave him a talk on shila, moral virtue. He gave him a talk on the heavens. He explained the danger, degradation, and defilement in sensual pleasures, and the blessing of renunciation. And then when he knew that the Brahmin Brahmāyu's mind was ready, receptive, free from hindrances, elated and confident, he expounded to him the teaching special to the Buddhas. Suffering, its origin, its cessation, and the path, the Four Noble Truths. And just as a clean cloth with all marks removed would take dye evenly, so too, while the Brahmin Brahmāyu sat there, the spotless, immaculate vision of the Dharma arose in him, and he realized all that's subject to arising is subject to cessation. Then the Brahmin Brahmāyu saw the Dharma, attained the Dharma, understood the Dharma, fathomed the Dharma. He crossed beyond doubt, did away with perplexity, gained, he became intrepid, and became independent of others in the teacher's dispensation. Then he said to the Blessed One, magnificent Master Gautama, Magnificent, Master Gotama. Master Gotama has made the Dharma clear in many ways, as though he were turning upright what had been turned upside down, revealing what had been hidden, showing the way to one who was lost, or holding up a lamp in the dark for those with eyesight to see. I go to the Master Gotama for refuge, and to the Dharma and to the Sangha of bhikkhus. From today, let Master Gotama remember me as a lay follower who is gone to him for refuge, for life. Let the Blessed One, together with the Sangha of bhikkhus, consent to accept tomorrow's meal from me. The Blessed One consented in silence. Then, knowing that the Blessed One had consented, the Brahmin Brahmāyu rose from his seat, and after paying homage to the Blessed One, keeping him on his right, he departed. Then, when the night had ended, the Brahmin Brahmāyu had good food of various kinds prepared in his residence, and he had the time announced to the Blessed One. It's time, Master Gotama, the meal is ready. Then, it being morning, the Blessed One dressed, and taking his bowl and outer robe, he went with the Sangha of bhikkhus to the Brahmin Brahmāyu's residence and sat down at the seat that had been made ready. Then, for an entire week, with his own hands, the Brahmin Brahmāyu served and satisfied the Sangha of bhikkhus, headed by the Buddha, with various kinds of good food. At the end of that week, the Blessed One set out to wander in the country of the Videhans. Soon after he had gone, the Brahmin Brahmāyu died. Then a number of bhikkhus went to the Blessed One, and after paying homage to him, they sat down at one side, and they said, Venerable Sir, the Brahmin Brahmāyu has died. What is his destination? What is his future course? And the Buddha replied, Bhikkhus, the Brahmin Brahmāyu was wise. He entered into the way of the Dharma, and he did not trouble me in the interpretation of the Dharma. With the destruction of the 5 lower fetters, he has reappeared spontaneously in the pure heavenly abodes, and he will there attain final nirvana without ever returning to this world. That's what the Blessed One said. The bhikkhus were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. I told you we'd do it. All right, but there's a few things I want to chat about that came up, but any questions, comments, ideas, anything? So, because we have a couple of minutes, I just wanted to mention, so Brahmāyu, he becomes a lay follower. He, his little Dharma eye gets clarified in that way. And then there's this section where it says, and then the Blessed One gave him progressive instruction. And we've actually seen this one time before in a sutra quite a while ago. It was the Upali Sutta. It was the sutta about a lay person who he was a devotee of the Jains or the Nigranthas, a guy named Upali. And then the leader of the Nigrantha was like, you should go and challenge the Buddha to a debate. And the guy's like, I'm a lay person. What are you talking about? I'm not going to go debate the Buddha. But he goes to try to debate the Buddha, winds up being converted, and then becomes a Buddhist. And then in that sutta, the Upali Sutta, it says the Buddha gave him this progressive instruction. And it's the exact same as here. So it's this progressive instruction of first these series of talks on dana, shila, about kind of, it says talk on the heavens, but what they mean is talk on like what gets you into heaven and like how to get into heaven, basically how to be good, It's kind of a continuation of the talk on virtue. And then he explained the danger, degradation, and defilement in kama, sensual pleasures, and the blessing of renunciation. I feel like I'm constantly doing that teaching or that talk all the time. It's what I call, outsourcing your pleasure, right? And so if your pleasure's coming from things in that way, from a Buddhist point of view, that's actually a semblance pleasure. It resembles pleasure, but it's not actual pleasure. And that's why it's always not quite as sweet as you thought it was going to be, or it doesn't last as long as you thought, is because it's not real pleasure. And so I'm always extolling the virtues of the actual pleasure that comes from not needing anything, from actually being independent of stuff. And that state of independence is a much greater pleasure than you're going to get from something. So I feel like I'm always doing that Dharma talk. That's part of the progressive teaching here. That idea of becoming aware of the danger of sensual pleasures and the blessing of renunciation. And then I wanted to mention this because I think this is so important. It's that idea of, and when the Buddha knew that Brahmāyu's mind was ready, then he taught him the Four Noble Truths. Very important for any aspiring Dharma teachers out there. You do not just start with the Four Noble Truths and just dump that on somebody's lap first thing. It's like, oh, you've had a bad day? Well, guess what? It's all suffering, buddy. No. There's a way, there's a upaya, there's a way that you ease people into this. And then when you see like, oh, okay, they understand that pleasure might not actually be coming from stuff. If you understand that real pleasure might not actually be coming from stuff, yeah, you're ready for the real Dharma, which is that it's actually suffering. It's not even pleasure. So, so that's the idea of how you transition from that idea to the Four Noble Truths. Boom. And then he got it. His Dharma eye was purified. So I wanted to mention that, the progressive teaching really quickly. And if you will, I want to go back to the Buddha's poetic reply to Brahmāyu. So Brahmāyu wants to know, how does one become a Brahmin, like a real Brahmin? How does one attain knowledge? How does one attain the triple knowledge or become a holy scholar? So Brahmāyu's poem, all of those, Brahmin, attained to knowledge, one with triple knowledge, holy scholar, these are all Brahmanya terms. They're all terms related to Brahmanism. And so Brahmāyu wants to know, all right, Buddha, you seem to know what you're talking about. How does one become a real Brahmin, a real holy scholar? Like, how does one achieve these states? And the Buddha replies, well, who knows about their former lives? So that's one aspect. And of course, part of the Buddhist process is developing awareness of past lives. So who knows about their former lives, sees heaven and hell, and has arrived at birth's destruction. A sage who knows by direct knowledge, who knows his mind is purified, entirely freed from every, and in this translation, as in most translations, it's going to say that the Buddha is saying entirely freed from every lust. And lust is this translation of raga. And I wanted to talk about this really quickly because I kind of always want to get this out there. So in the world of Buddhism, you have this idea of the three poisons or the three kleshas, the three defilements, and they are normally translated as greed, anger, and delusion. But greed, in this case, is being translated as lust, but the word is actually raga. And the opposite of raga is devesha. And then there's moha, confusion or ignorance. But I want to focus on the two of raga and devesha, greed and anger. What I always kind of, this is kind of a big part of my personal teaching because it's how I understand Buddhism. Buddhism, is a very complicated tradition with a lot of words. And what I mean is that they have words for anger, ill will, hatred, bitterness. They have words for all of those things. But in terms of the three poisons, the word devesha does not mean anger or bitterness or resentment. Devesha is aversion. Just averse. Whereas raga, again, it's translated as desire, greed, lust. Raga is attraction, being attracted versus being averse. Two very simple movements, a movement towards, a movement away. And an example that I like to give of raga and devesha, for me, a great example of raga and devesha is in the morning, you get into a cold shower. And the way the body naturally is like, that's devesha. That's devesha, the aversion, the But have you ever had that nice hot shower that, you almost want to like hug? You like want to get so into the hot water? Well, that's raga. That's raga. Like the attraction. It feels good. I want more of it. The cold water, aversion, devesha. The point is that in Buddhism, attraction and aversion, if you don't catch those in the bud, in the nascent state, attraction can turn into craving and lust and desire and addiction and like all these deeper layers. But you don't get addicted to what you're not attracted to in the beginning. Similarly, devesha, aversion, if you don't catch it, it turns into hatred, bitterness, resentment. Like the aversion gets so intense that I want to destroy it. I want it to go out of existence. I'm so averse to it. I say all of that because in a poem like this or a sentence like this, it's actually saying that a Buddha, or the Buddha is describing somebody who is entirely freed from every attraction, not every lust. I mean, obviously, if there's no attraction, there's not going to be those more, other emotions. But for me, I'm on this mission to clarify that these words don't mean exactly what they're being interpreted as. But as we've spoken about a lot in Dharma Doors, these particular collections, the Nikayas, these are the collections that were preserved by the monastic tradition, the ultra celibate monastic tradition. So they love to interpret everything through the lens of sexuality and avoiding sexuality. But that's only one piece of the puzzle in that way. So I like to sort of whatever these and put them back in their proper context. So that's it. We did the sutra, we talked Dharma, waved our hands. Check. All right, everybody. That's going to be it for tonight's Dharma Doors. We're on our way in the Brahmaṇavagga. Thank you all for being here. As always, I'm always so appreciative of everybody just being here and asking great questions or just